Hello there, this is Rob's Wolf, and today I'm going to show you some kind of like colorization, so how to colorize an image. Now, what I've got here are some pictures taken from Video Copilot's Evolution. So here you see Evolution is a motion graphics pack that they offer with just stock footage like this, and I think it looks quite fancy, so I'm going to try and make something out of it. So what I've done is I've taken a snapshot of this here, and I just saved it as an image. That's what I've done. And then what we're going to do is we're going to colorize it. Now, probably the first thing you might notice is that here we've got really some kind of horrible edges here. And it's not just the compression for the video, it's actually just because of the way it's scaled. So if I press Control 1, which is the same as view actual pixels, so every pixel is shown, nothing else, you can see how they actually have quite smooth edges. It's just as we set it to fit on screen that because of the way it eliminates the pixels for viewing, it gives quite a harsh edge. So Control 1, it's actual pixels, Control 0, fit on screen. Actual pixels fit on screen. Now, before I can kind of tell you about colorizing, you need to understand the fundamental basics of color on a computer. Now, I'm going to talk about 8-bit RGB color. I know there are other types of color like 16-bit and YUV and all that stuff, but for the purpose of this video, we're just going to pretend that there's only 8-bit RGB, which is what this image is. Now, colors on a computer are made up of 3 channels. There's red, green, and blue. And if I open the color palette here, you can see we've got red, green, and blue. Now, every color in standard computer color, each of these channels can have a value between 0 and 255, which basically represents the amount of that channel to put in. So full red and full green will produce yellow. Full green and full blue will produce like a cyan colour. Just full green, nothing else will produce green. Now, I prefer this colour system here, which is HSB or HSL, which stands for hue, saturation, brightness or lightness. And I think this makes a lot more sense than this, but it's easier for computers to handle this for reasons that I won't go into. But you see, we've got the hue, which is basically this slider, which is where it is on the colour strip. The saturation is the kind of intensity of the colour. So here you see it's quite a dull orange, but here it's a really bright orange, you see. So really kind of vivid orange. Then we've got the brightness, which is basically how light it is. And we've got completely black or completely bright, not white, but kind of fully light, if that makes sense. And if you know anything about science, you'll know that light is white in colour, and if you split that light up, then you get with a prism, and you get a rainbow, which is made up of red, orange, green, blue, indigo, violet. And that's basically this kind of colour strip here is a rainbow, minus up to about here-ish, from here to here, and that's a rainbow. And so when you mix all these colours together, so you have full red, full green, and full blue, you get white, you see? And then as I decrease this, if I put some 0, 0, 0, that's black. And if I put it kind of in perfect grey, all the numbers will be exactly the same. And anything that's perfectly grey, all 3 channels will have the same value. Anything fully white will have 255 in all the channels. Anything fully black will have 0 in all the channels. And the saturation is kind of, if you look at the numbers here, you'll see the saturation is kind of how far apart the numbers are, if that makes sense. And the brightness is like the overall intensity of the numbers. If that, a little bit hard to get your head around, but once you understand it, it's dead easy. All you really need to know is that white is 255, 255, 255, black is 0, 0, 0. So the thing is, because all these channels, if you look up here in my info palette, which is in Window info. I think it appears over here somewhere. I just dragged it over here. If you look at my red, green, blue, and hover over any pixel, it'll show you the colour value of that pixel. So here, this white bit, for example, the pixel there is 255, 255, 255. And that means that the channels are fully saturated, and we can't add anything more to it. Just assume we can't add anything more to it, even though there's things like 32-bit colour and so on. But you can't add anything more to this. It's because they're fully saturated, and it's a lot easier if we want to colorise this. So hang on, I'll show you again. If we've got white, we want to make it red. If you watch my numbers, they actually decrease as you start to bring colour into it. So if we want to colorise this, stop it being white, we will have to remove colour. And it's harder to remove colour, in my opinion. I think it's harder to remove colour compared to adding colour. So it'd be really easy to colorise this black background, but quite, because you just add numbers to it, quite hard to colour this white, floral thing here, because all the colour channels are already full. So, after babbling on for ages, what we're basically going to do is we just want to make this bit here, the white bit, black. The simplest way to do that is just to hit Control-I. And what that's done has inverted the image. So you see now all these, what were black pixels are now white, and they're fully saturated, 255, 255, 255. And the pixels that were fully saturated are now fully white, over now fully black with 0, 0, 0. You see? And you see, remember I said it's a lot easier to add colour than take it away. So what we're going to do is we're going to firstly remove all this white, come over here, click and drag, go to the Magic Wand tool, make sure contiguous is unchecked, tolerance about 32, and just click on the white, so white here, delete, and then Control-D. What that's done is it's eliminated all the white. The reason we uncheck contiguous is if there's any kind of like isolated areas. Like here, for example, this bit's not selected because it's not touching this area here. Is not selected because it's not touching this area. If you untick contiguous, it'll just select all the pixels that colour in the image. So select all the white pixels, hit delete, then Control-D will deselect everything. And if I hit Control-1 now, you can see it's perfectly black and there's no white pixels, so hit Control-0 to make it fit. So now I've eliminated the white background and we're going to add some colour. And we could do this by going to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. But if we actually adjust the image, we've got no later control over it. That's called destructive editing, because we can't go back and change it later. Whereas if we added an adjustment layer, which is this icon down here, click that, Hue Saturation, it creates an adjustment layer, and if you know After Effects you'll know what an adjustment layer is. An adjustment layer is a layer that, if you apply effects to it, will basically add those effects to every layer beneath it. So we've added this adjustment layer with the Hue and Saturation on, and we'll tick the Colourise switch. And you can see at the minute there's nothing here, nothing's happened. So we're going to boost up the saturation a bit, and still nothing's happened, but we are getting very slight kind of red colours in here. That's just because that area is not completely black because of the way Photoshop handles the deletion of the white, kind of fades the edges. So if we turn up the lightness, you can see how our image just starts to go red, and that's great. So what we can do is these are the controls. So you've got the hue, which is basically where it is on the colour wheel, if you will. So might choose there. Saturation. As a general rule of thumb, the lighter something is, the less saturation it will have. The darker something is, the more saturation it will have. Just as a kind of general rule. Or might have less saturation as well. Might be inverted, just to confuse us. But I think if you play around, that looks quite good. Maybe a little bit of saturation and a bit of dark. There we go, that's fine. And now this here, this hue and saturation effect has applied itself to this layer beneath it. If we turn off the adjustment layer with this eye. You can see this is what this actual layer looks like. If we turn on the adjustment layer, it adds that hue and saturation effect to the layer beneath it. Now, if we say we wanted to take this a step further, so I'll press Ctrl 0 just to make it fit. Say we wanted to take this a step further, we could add a background. So we'll come over here, new layer, call it BG, okay. Put it underneath our floral design. And then we'll go to the background, and we might grab the gradient tool. What we might do actually just grab the paint bucket tool, fill it. And you that you can see that looks horrible. And actually, what we need to do before we do the background, as you can see, although I filled it with black, it's showing up as the same blue as our floral design. And the reason for that is because the adjustment layer applies the effects to everything beneath it. So as well as just applying this colour to the floral design, it's also applying the same colour shift to the background. So that turns out blue as well. And the solution to that, to click on the floral design, hold Control, click on the adjustment layer as well. So now they're both selected. Drag them into this kind of folder down here. See, drag them into the folder, and that will create a group. If you miss that, Control click on the layers to select them. Drag them into the folder, and you have a group. If that doesn't work, select them and press Control G, and that will put them in a group as well. Let's rename the group. We'll call this Colourised Flower. That's how you spell colorised in England. And you can see we have a problem. It's still, the adjustment layer is still affecting our background layer. And unfortunately there's no direct way that I know of to exclude layers from adjustment layers. So you have to kind of cheat it and put everything you want to be affected by the adjustment layer separately. So we've put these in a group, but you can see here it still says pass through. So that means it's basically going to ignore the fact they're in a group and just treat them as if they're in like the root still on top of this layer. And what we can do is we can change this from pass through to normal. And now you can see this is acting as like a separate individual object. And then this adjustment layer does not affect our background. So I'll just shrink this down, right click on the background, blending options. We'll make it look pretty. So I'll add a gradient overlay, maybe radial, reverse. We'll change this black here to a nice sort of dark blue, really dark, just to match our floral design to scale up a bit. I might go to the white actually and change that very slightly light blue. There we go, that looks quite good. And again, we've still got these horrible edges, but that doesn't matter because we can press Control 1 and you can see it does actually look quite good. But it's not perfect. If I zoom in here, you can see how we have this kind of light, these light pixels around the edge. And actually what you might notice, just on second thoughts, while you're zooming in here, is if you zoom in far enough, you might get what's called the pixel grid showing up, which is a real pain in my opinion. And it's just like, it shows a grid of all the pixels. And the way to get around that, okay, so you go to View, Show, and I think for some reason it's not showing up in mine, but somewhere here I think there should be pixel grid. If that's not there, Google it, I'm sure you can disable it somehow. But, back to the point, we've got these horrible kind of light edges around the edge, these sort of highlights. And you may want that may be what you're after, but our original image didn't have that. We don't like that. So I'll zoom into 100% by pressing Control 1, just so our edges do have the right perfect number of pixels. And what we can do is if we hold down, so if we open our group first, hold down Control, Command if you're on a Mac, and click on the thumbnail for floral design, for this floral layer. Another way to do that is to select the layer, select load selection, make sure it's on transparency, and you've got, then you do that, and it does the same thing. And what we're going to do now is, what you can do with a selection is you can create a layer mask. And a layer mask is much like a luma mat in After Effects. So with a selection, you click on this button here, which is like a rectangle with a circle cut out of it. And already that does look a little bit better. See, before, after. Now obviously it's not much better, so there's still a few things we can do. So I'll zoom in a bit here onto this particular spiral, which seems to be particularly affected. And once you've created a layer mask, there's a lot of options for you. So you can make sure you click on the layer mask, not the layer, but the actual layer mask, and go to Select, Refine Mask. And unfortunately it does change the background to white, and there's not a lot you can do about that, I don't think. Oh yes there is. Well, I didn't know you could do that. Change it to on black. Great. Okay, I learned something new. So we'll change this to on black so we can see the borders. And then just pull back the shift edge a bit, just pull it in a touch. And maybe the smooth as well. Could do the radius. No, leave that, that's fine. Okay. And you can see now, if we go Control-Alt-Z to undo, and Control-Shift-Z to redo, see, it looks a lot better now. It's a little bit kind of choked, particularly here, but that's not, I don't think that's much of a sacrifice to have a better edge. And the great thing about it being a layer mask is then you can go back to it later and you can shift the edge again, so you can make it bigger, smaller. So because it's a layer mask, we haven't affected the actual image data. You can go back and change it back, which is great. But that's okay, so I'll press Control-1. That's looking a lot better than before. A couple of things you might want to clean up, say, in here, these particularly light patches, you might just have to select the the Magic Wand tool and just make sure you selected the image, not the layer mask, by the way, and just delete some of these edges with contiguous on. So it's just you just have to kind of play around, work out what's best. Oh, 1 second. There we go. I turned down the opacity by accident. So you would just go around and kind of delete these light patches. Once you've done that, which I've got to skip for now, is what I would do is I would duplicate this floral design layer, so by pressing Ctrl-J or right-click, duplicate layer, okay? And then I would disable the layer mask, because what we're going to do means we won't really need it. And we'll go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, I don't know how it's pronounced. Turn this up a little bit, and you can see how it starts to kind of glow around the edges. So before, after. And what that can do also is it gives it a bit of a cleaner edge as well. So we're doing all these things here. I can't really think of anything else to add to that. The only thing I might do is go to the gradient overlay, go to this dark colour here, make it a little bit less dark like that maybe, and then just scale it up a little bit more. Okay, there we go, that looks pretty good. It's been, 20 minutes just about. Okay, I can't think of anything else to tell you, I think that's it. We could quickly go through that here. So yeah, let's do it quickly. Invert, wand, contiguous off, click, delete, create a new adjustment layer, hue saturation, colourize, turn up the lightness a bit, find a colour we like, green, saturation, play with that a bit, that's fine. Hide this, control click, drag these into a new layer, change this mode to normal, create a new layer, background, put it on the back, grab the fill tool, fill it, right click, blending options, gradient overlay, change it to radial, cancel that, reverse, and to make this a bit lighter, a bit kind of green maybe, like that. And play with that a bit, okay. Go back into the group, control click on this layer, hit the layer mask button, undo that because I did that wrong, click on, make sure this layer is selected, click the layer mask button, select, refine mask, and then just shift the edge a bit, just to eliminate this harsh edge, okay, and then duplicate this, right click, disable layer mask, select the image, filter, blur, Gaussian blur, turn this up to about 6 pixels-ish, put it underneath, and we're done. It was dead quick. Of course you may want to play with this a bit further to clean these edges up. Just some of these light patches. And that's just to do with the way Photoshop deletes the soft edges. Okay, that took what, a minute and a half? 2 minutes? It wasn't that long. So you can do that really quickly, and once you've done that you can start whipping off designs left, right and centre. So, but don't forget you can go back into the hue saturation, double click on this icon. It's going to bring up the hue saturation window so we can change this to nice purple. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Please check out the blog, which is robswolf.cu.cc. Check out the channel, which is robswolf.cu.cc/channel. That's just about it. So, thank you very much for watching. I probably have to go off and do tons of homework now. Oh, don't say the word homework. Okay, Robbie, get out of here. I'll see you next time. Bye now.